Hi, my name's Pratyoosh Kashyap, and I'm a photojournalist at the Collegian at the Rocky Mountain Student Media at Colorado State University. I've been working as a photographer for almost 2 years now with the Collegian, and it's been quite exciting. I've had the opportunity to shoot a lot of environmental portraits along with other kinds of shoots, but I would like to share some of my experiences with you about the environmental portraits I've shot. So to start with, what do we mean when we say an environmental portrait? As simple as it is, it's a portrait of your subject, but within their environment. So we're not showing just the person we're shooting, but also where they are, what they're doing, what environment they're in, and telling a story in a single photograph. The most challenging aspect about the environmental photography is the background, and which is what also makes the photo stand out as a photo. So in addition to controlling for what your subject looks like, you're also focusing on what all's happening in the background and that it's not distracting and taking away from the photo you want to shoot. So literally you take a step back from when you're talking about a portrait and you see a lot more of the background of the environment. Before stepping into your shoot, let's just go through the initial things we must take care of. Make sure you have your equipment, a memory card which is formatted, a fully charged battery, your camera. And what I have here with me is a Nikon D750 with a 35mm lens. Being at the Collegian, you can also check out different lenses for your shoot. So it's important to know what kind of a shoot you're doing, where you're going to be going, how much space you have, if you need specific lenses, if you have preference for certain lenses. And all of that's available at the Collegian, which is great, and it also lets you experiment. So once you're all set with the equipment, you've spoken to the people you're going to shoot, we're ready to get out to the shoots. What we'll be doing today is 3 different kinds of lighting situations. The first one's at the KCSU radio station, which is an indoor low-lit small space with a radio jockey. So let's begin.
Okay, stick jackets. Once again, I'm Stevie. I'm in the station. Keep it locked on 90.5.
Hi Stevie, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'll just be going around taking a few pictures.
Perfect.
Yep. The first thing we see as we get inside is it's a closed space. It's low light for sure, but there's a lot of light and reflections around. We see walls with a lot of different colors. We see CDs on that side. There's a nice light pointing on the DJ, so we've got some good central light to focus on. I think to start with, I would go up to 3200. My shutter speed of about 1/100th of a second, and this lens gives me a maximum aperture of 4.5. And without a frame in mind, just to see what the light is like, I would take a couple of trial shots. I have the CDs in the back, I have the DJ with the light on her, and this would give me a good idea of the exposure I'm getting. Even with an ISO of 3200, we see it's pretty dark. We do have some light on the DJ, but I can bump it up a little more. I'm in one corner of the studio, which gives me an entire perspective. But once I've got this photo, well, it looks great, but because it's such a wide angle and I'm so far away, I lose my subject. So in the photo itself, it's a good one, but for what I'm here to do, as getting an environmental portrait, it's not something I'd be using. Getting up close from one side gives me what she's doing, some lighting, some computers. I get a couple of shots, a couple of angles. Using a 12mm wide allows me to get close, get a lot of things in one frame together. What I would want to do next is try a different perspective. I've got a 35mm with an maximum aperture of 2. I take a couple of shots and it looks pretty good to me. So it's now an idea of the setting I would be going ahead with. And then it's creative liberty for you. There's a lot happening here. You can look at reflections, try out some things if it's okay with the subject, if you have time to stick around for a little bit. I see some reflections of the studio on these CDs and I'm going to just see if this gives me a fun photo. I think it's a beautiful photo of the reflection of the CDs on the wall with the DJ. Well, thanks, Stevie. I think we've I've got some good shots, and
Great.
I'm excited to see how this comes out.
Yes, me too. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you. And I think once we're done, we'll share the photos in the newspaper with you.
Sounds good.
Well, see you.
Bye.
Good evening. So that was the KCSU radio station. Now we're moving on to the Little Shop of Physics workshop space, which is a much bigger room. There's going to be windows, some sunlight. It's not going to be as colorful, but a completely different space to shoot in. So let's take a look at that. Hi Adam, how are you?
Very good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm Pratyoosh from the Collegian, and we'll be doing a shoot with you today.
Awesome.
Yeah. Can you tell me what you've got set up for us?
So this is an infrared experiment. We've got this special camera that sees beyond the end of the rainbow into the infrared.
Yeah.
And I'm just checking out different things in front of the camera and seeing what they look like. You can actually see little spots disappear in the camera.
Yeah. Well, this will make for interesting photos. Thank you. Because of the lighting we have here, the fluorescent lighting and windows on one side, this is the settings I would do. Relatively higher shutter speed compared to where we were. I would increase my aperture to about f5 so that we can establish some of the background and not blur everything. And definitely a lower ISO. We can start off at about 1600 and let's see where this goes. Being here also ensures that I have good light on him coming from the windows in the back, and it's still a nice background to have. I can see him, I can see the computer, and it establishes a nice shot for the assignment. Once you're finished with your safe shots, there are opportunities to take creative photos as you like, and this room's full of a lot of opportunities. Something that caught my eye was this skeleton, and I'm going to try and frame Adam, the experiment, the room, and the skeleton together as an interesting, fun shot. So what I get by shooting this photo is that I've got the skeleton in the foreground, I've got the experiment and Adam going on in the background, and the rest of the room too. So it gives an interesting perspective, a depth, and establishes what all we have going around in the space. We're going to be moving into a dark room. It's going to be much darker, fewer lights, so we'll have to change some settings. It's going to be a much smaller room, so let's see what that looks like. So I've moved up to an ISO of 5000, an aperture of f2, and a shutter speed of 1/100. And I'm using a 35mm f2. And if it still seems like this is too dark a photo, the first thing I would do is bring down the shutter speed a little bit more, because I still can, instead of going up a higher ISO.
This is so cool.
'Cause science.
Because science.
We were in a very dark studio right now, and now we're out under the sky in the sunlight. What we're trying to do is establish a portrait of Adam out with the building, out in the open. The first thing I would do is change my settings now to incorporate a lot more light and that we're outdoors. Having a much lower ISO now that we're outside, and a higher aperture also to not completely blur out the background, get some of the building, and still have a bright enough photograph. Let's see if this works. I've got Adam standing with him facing the sunlight, and we've got sunlight on the buildings and the walls behind him. This could be a little tricky if we've got him in the sunlight and the shadow in the back, or Adam in the shadow and light in the back. So just to make sure that what you're trying to achieve through your photo, you get that with your subject and some of the background. I think that looks good. This is what it looks like.
That looks great. Thank you.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you.
It was a pleasure to meet you.
I'll see
you
you
around.
Bye. So just to recap, all that we did right now, talked about so that you have everything in place before you go for your shoot, is that to make sure you have the necessary equipment before you go for the shoot. You know where you're going to shoot, what the environment's going to be like, so you have an idea of all the equipment you need, what kind of lighting's going to be there. You could have spoken to the editors, know what they want, what's going to get published. And once you get there, you can take your time, look at the surroundings, look at the lighting there is, the space you have, which will help you decide what lenses you use, what settings you're going to have, high ISO, low ISO, if it's a lot of light, less light, if you want to use external light. And once you get shooting, I think it's important to be patient, respect the subject you're shooting, don't get in their space. Keep communicating with them so they know what you're doing, you know what they're doing, and it gives you comfortable shots. Once you have your safe shot, then you have the time and space to get around and make some creative photos. So there's nothing stopping you from that. There's a lot happening when you're shooting environmental portraits. Finally, once you've completed your assignment and you get back home, then there's still editing and uploading to be done. We recommend that you try and do it on the same day because there is a big team working on the story and everyone's got to get their work done. So if the photos are in quick that evening, then the rest of the work can follow. You can upload the photos on WordPress, and then the following day or in a couple of days, make sure you check back in the equipment you've rented from the Collegian. Well, I've really enjoyed shooting environmental portraits with the Collegian, and I hope my experiences helped you learn a few things. And well, thanks for watching, and I hope you have fun shooting your own.
What?